Last time, we got doors sliding open and lights triggering on, transforming a simple box into a living space. But a hallway is just a hallway unless it leads somewhere. Today, we're expanding the map outwards and connecting our starting room down a stairwell into a massive glowing lava chamber, where I'll be tackling some of Quake's more mechanical beasts. Trigger activated moving platforms, and key locked doors. Before we could get to the big mechanics, I needed to physically connect our doorway to the next major area, and this was actually inspired by a comment from a viewer and longtime friend named Mephi, who said, "Let's see some stairs." Challenge accepted. Now, I wanted to do more than just whitebox a ramp and a connecting hall. I spent some real time here matching the visual stylings of our original beautiful corner. I continued that angled left wall through the doorway, sealed off the ceiling, but continued the same overhead lighting fixtures from the prior hall, though with one light blinking on and off, with an attached sound for immersion and visual storytelling. I wrestled with the trim work, lining up texture alignments along angled geometry, and making sure that the geometry snapped to grid as best as possible. And while I was at it, I jumped back into the first hall to tweak some detail meshing and lighting to make the whole transition feel cohesive. It's the developer mindset here. You're always polishing your prior works whenever you can. Quick shoutouts before I forget. Thanks KP Pot for the sunlight tip. It worked out much better as opposed to using multiple point lights by my skybrush in the hallway. Also, thank you Christian Ice for the colored lighting tip. I'm already using Ironwell, which supports it. I just had to add a color flag in the entity list for the lights, and now I have glorious colored lighting. It's so awesome. Oh, and on that note, I saw a lot of people were saying my gameplay videos looked really dark, so I boosted the lighting throughout the environment. Hopefully it's better. By the way, if you're enjoying the content that I'm making, consider supporting the channel by liking, subbing, doing all of the YouTube stuff. It's greatly appreciated. Let's keep going. Once the L-shaped hallway was framed out, it was time to put my trigger knowledge from the last video to the test. At the bottom of the stairs, I set up another proximity door, but I wanted to push it a step further. An iron gate opened by a physical button on the wall at the top of the stairs. Building the gate came with its own challenges. I had to shape the gate ends into sharp points and use CSG subtracts on the stair brush surfaces so the metal spikes provided the illusion of actually sinking into the floor and ceiling trim. Small details, but they sell the mechanical construction of the environment. Adjusted its speed, learned about timings to either shut the gate or keep it open indefinitely, and attached a sound to it. Once that was done, I did some final art tweaks to the hall, adding small overhead light fixtures to help illuminate the ceiling vents that I added. Added some clipping meshes on the staircase to help smooth the player camera movement when using them. I made sure to leave a small lip though so that the player still catches on a step should they stop on them. I even added clipping meshes into the floor spotlight holes. I was finding the player could sink into them a little. I could keep arting and polishing this L-shaped hall, but I needed to stay on task and focus on the main challenge ahead, moving platforms and locked doors. For the main chamber, I wanted something that broke away from the rectangular repetition of the prior halls. So I started with a cube and rotated it 45 degrees to give the room an angular, aggressive footprint. The layout concept I had in my head is a multi-step puzzle loop. You enter the space, and across the lava pit is a silver key platform. To get there, you have to cross a traversal puzzle on the left. To hit a button, that button activates a moving platform, or FUNC train, that bridges the gap to the silver key. Grabbing that key triggers a second platform to rise up from the lava by the starting area, lifting you to the final landing where the locked blue key door waits. Following standard environment art and design discipline, I grayboxed the entire space first. Scale and gameplay flow must come before art. Once the scale felt right, I built out the first moving platform. In Quake, this means turning a brush into a FUNC train and plotting out path corners to determine its route. Just like doors, it's all about matching targets and target names. But of course, my first test run was a bit messy. The platform clipped hard into the stone wall because of its rotation angle to the path corners. Back to the editor to fix the path corners. And speaking of testing, the jump puzzle leading to the button was completely broken at first. The height difference was impossible to clear on the return back, so I had to stagger the platforms into a staircase layout. Testing constantly during this phase of design saves you from adjusting a bunch of arted assets in a broken space, which can be very time consuming. Underneath all of this sits a massive pool of lava. I dropped a large brush and assigned a trigger hurt entity to it with a damage value of 20 to punish anyone who falls in. But configuring a liquid volume comes with a catch. Big shout out here to Dump Truck DS, a staple in the Quake mapping community whose tutorials have been extremely valuable. He recommends using liquid skip textures on the outer edges. This keeps the engine from calculating unnecessary viz data during compilation, and also makes it so you actually see the adjacent wall textures outside of the liquid volume. Speaking of compiling, my compile times at this point were starting to spike. To fix this, I applied the FUNC detail tag to all of my non-structural meshes, objects that don't need to seal the map from the outer void. It slashed my compile times instantly. To flesh out that tricky jump puzzle to the button, I decided to build some industrial pipes using cylinders. Now, working with cylinders and rotating them can get messy once you start modifying verts and doing CSG subtractions. Self-reminder, grouping would come in handy here. Anyhow, I used a 45-degree angle rotation and CSG merging to bridge the pieces together, making sure every single vertex snapped back to the grid. I did fragment the geometry a bit by subtracting hollow ends, and while I originally wanted lava flowing out of them, I didn't have a custom wad setup ready for flowing liquid textures, so that's something to tackle for a future project. Once the pipes were in place, I adjusted their positions after another round of play testing to make sure every jump actually cleared comfortably. With the logic locked in, it was time for the art pass. Leaning into my episode 3 Quake mental framework, I ditched some complex cylinder skull pillars that I first started building out, and in favor of a brutalist, angular, rusted metal support structure along the walls and corners, which actually helped keep the workflow moving. I framed out the blue key door using those gorgeous runic trim textures, adding silver key rune indicators on the corners. And remember that colored lighting tip? I painted pools of blue and red light directly onto the door frame to really sell that atmosphere. Looking up, I couldn't leave the ceiling flat. I cut a massive hole, revealing the purple sky, bridging structural support beams from the outer walls into the center using metal rafter textures. Finally, I gave the moving platforms themselves a bit of love, doing some quick CSG subtracts and adding trim textures so they weren't just boring floating metal blocks. Running through for the final test, cross the pipe safely, hit the button, ride the platform, grab the silver key, trigger the second platform, safely return back, make that risky final jump to the last platform, unlock the blue door, and that's the end. No working end level trigger. We'll do that next time. Everything functions. The logic holds up, the pacing feels tight, and the environment feels like a cohesive slice of Quake. Though the jumping pipes is a bit on the dangerous side. Though, come on, most of us have been quaking for 30 years, so my levels are going to be challenging. On that note, we've officially got the tools down. Doors, triggers, lifts, and keys. There's probably a few more, but this is a solid foundation to start with. Which means for our next video, we are stepping away from pure architecture and moving into the real fun of level design, combat encounters. You made it to the end. Get on the FUNC train. What are your thoughts on how this small map shaped out? How'd my FUNC trains turn out? And do you think that the jumping puzzle looks too challenging? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments section. If you have a question you would like featured in my Q&A series, leave that down in the comments as well with the tag frags and coffee. And who knows, your question may be featured in a future episode. Shout out to my channel members. A special shout out to Redagas5316. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like a special shout out as well, consider supporting the channel by providing a super thanks. Check out my membership tiers for special perks like early access to my videos, priority responses to your comments, as well as a special role on my Discord server, which I have linked down below. Enjoyed the video? Hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more great gaming content. And if you're looking for more, check out this recommended video right here. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.